In addition to Azure PowerShell, Microsoft provides the Azure Command Line Interface, or the Azure CLI. And like PowerShell, the CLI is a cross-platform tool. It works on Windows, it works on Linux, or it works on macOS. The CLI also offers an interactive mode, which gives you kind of an autocomplete experience at the command line, and it's a great choice if you love shell scripting in Linux. In fact, most people who use the CLI are people who just prefer that kind of environment over PowerShell. If you don't know PowerShell, then the CLI could be a great choice for you. Alright, so enough talk about all that. Let's go have a look and see how the CLI works. So this is a command prompt running in Windows. This is not PowerShell, it's just a basic command prompt. All of the different operating systems I mentioned earlier, Windows, Linux, macOS, they all have the ability to open a basic command prompt, and from here you can interact with the CLI assuming you've installed it. Now the CLI doesn't install with a simple command line in Windows. You actually download an installer and run it, and I've already done that. You can find that by searching on Azure CLI on the internet. If you're not running in Windows, it'll give you exactly what command you should run at the command line to install the CLI. Now, very similar to Azure PowerShell, once you've launched your command line, you have to connect the CLI to your Azure subscription. You do that here with a different command than you do in PowerShell. It's just AZ login. In fact, all of the commands that you run for the CLI start with AZ. So AZ login will allow me to log into my Azure subscription for the CLI. So I'll hit enter, and that opens a web browser here that I can use to log into my Azure subscription. And now it says I can close this window, so I'll do that. And I see my Azure subscription. Great, so I am now logged in. So from here, I can run any of those AZ commands to interact with my Azure resources. Very similar to the way that we did with PowerShell, but the syntax is a little different. All of the Azure CLI commands, as I mentioned earlier, start with AZ, and after AZ you have a noun like resource, and then you have a verb. What do you want to do with a resource? And let's just say list. So I'll say AZ resource list and hit enter. Now in this case my list of resources is in JSON format. Looks very much like an ARM template. Just as I can do with PowerShell, I'm going to hit up on my keyboard and I'm going to change the format of this. It's a little bit different in the CLI. You use 2 dashes and then output and then a space, and I can put this in a table just like I did in PowerShell. So now I have that same thing in a table. It's a little bit messy because it's wider than my screen. And I mentioned earlier that we have this ability to run in interactive mode. So if I do AZ interactive and hit enter, now it's going to install an extension to give me interactive mode, which is very helpful if I don't already know what commands are available. Yes. So what it's doing right now is it's loading all the different commands that I can use for the CLI so that it can give me that autocorrect. So now I have the interactive mode for the CLI. So if I type right here resource, I just type res. Notice by the way AZ is already listed, so anything that I type here, I don't have to type the AZ command because it's implied. So if I just type res, I get all of the different commands that start with residential, and I get kind of a description of what they are. So I can see right off there is resource, which manages Azure resources. Now I'll hit space, and now I've got this list of all the different commands that I can issue for a resource. You can see your list, which is the one I used earlier, and if I click the or press the down arrow on my keyboard, I can scroll through all of those. So this is just a much easier way to use the CLI if you're not familiar with all of the different commands that you can use. Now, if you want to get out of interactive mode, you just use Control D. It may be different in your operating system, But notice at the bottom of the screen here there is a legend that shows you what the different commands are. So if I hit Ctrl D right here, it exits me out of interactive mode. And I'm now back to a regular command prompt where I can enter my AZ commands as I did earlier. So that's how easy it is to use the CLI.